My name is Daniel. I'm 41, and I once believed that if you worked diligently, stayed faithful, and provided for your loved ones, they'd stand by you. That conviction vanished the moment I read the words on my birthday cake. Let me take you back to the start, when I still thought the small gestures mattered. I'm not one for extravagance. Never was. I rise at 6, brew my own coffee, drive 45 minutes to my job, oversee a shipping depot, and return home by 6:30. I've followed that routine for nearly 2 decades, paid off the house early, never skipped a school function, fixed everything from broken faucets to my son Caleb's first heartbreak at 16. I didn't seek applause. I just assumed steady effort held value. My wife Sarah used to be my biggest supporter, or maybe that's just how I recall it. We met in college. She had a vibrancy, and I was the reserved guy in the back, always punctual, jotting notes for the group. She said she admired my reliability. Over time, that reliability started to sound more like predictable. Still, I thought we were fine until last year's birthday. My birthdays were always simple, and I was okay with that. Usually a card, maybe a sweater I didn't choose, and a home-cooked dinner. But this time, they planned a party. It was all Caleb's idea, they claimed. I came home to balloons clumsily taped to the ceiling fan, store-bought snacks tossed into mismatched bowls, and a half-hearted banner reading "Happy Birthday, Dan," like I was some acquaintance they barely knew. I grinned anyway, took it in stride. Sarah guided me to the dining table where the cake waited. Chocolate fudge, my favorite. But this one didn't say "Happy Birthday" or "We love you" or anything typical. In bold, messy red icing, it read, "Congrats on being average." At first, I thought it was a prank. You know, that sharp, sarcastic humor some folks enjoy. But then Caleb raised his phone, recording my reaction. Sarah chuckled. "Come on, it's funny. You're always saying you're just ordinary." I never said that. Not once. But they leaned into it, laughing and shouting like they were roasting me at a comedy show. I forced a smile. Not because I was fine, but because I had to. I blew out the candles, posed for photos like some office mascot, then quietly began cleaning up as everyone drifted to the living room to scroll their phones. No one offered to help, not even Caleb. I scraped dried icing off the table, bagged up half-eaten chips, and washed their plates in silence. The only sound was Sarah's phone, replaying the video as she laughed like it was top-tier comedy. No one noticed I didn't speak for the rest of the night. The days after blurred together. I didn't argue, didn't confront. I just observed, watched, like I was outside my own life taking stock. I noticed Sarah hadn't worked in over 6 years but shopped like we had endless money. Caleb had a new laptop, gaming chair, and an allowance that could cover a car payment. I paid every bill, every subscription, every small luxury. Without question, I'd been the machine quietly powering their world, and they'd started treating me like a fixture. Dependable, static, overlooked. That Monday, I checked our joint accounts. We had 3, 2 savings, 1 checking. I opened them all, stared at the balances, then stared longer at the transaction history. Sarah had spent over $900 that week alone on candles, skincare, random online trinkets, and another self-care subscription box. Caleb had burned through $300 on gaming purchases. I traced it back, month after month, year after year. It hit me like a truck. I was funding a lifestyle that had no space for me, so I made a plan. I didn't yell, didn't lash out. I quietly prepared. I opened a private checking account in my name only, rerouted my paycheck, rented a small storage unit across town. I began collecting important documents, birth certificates, my social security card, passports. Every evening, I'd go for a walk, but I was really moving boxes out of the house, piece by piece. Old photos, tools, a few heirlooms from my dad that Sarah never valued. No one noticed. They were too busy enjoying the life I funded. I also stopped covering the small things, subtly. Sarah's gym membership? Canceled. Caleb's streaming services, music apps, gaming subscriptions? Gone. I even downgraded the internet. When Sarah asked why the connection was slow, I shrugged and said, "Must be the router." They complained, but didn't push. I suppose when you treat someone like a shadow, you don't notice when they start fading. The final step was the joint account. I'd left just enough to keep things looking normal, but that changed on a Tuesday morning. That day, I signed a lease for a temporary rental using my new account, confirmed the final paycheck deposit, and waited until Sarah left for her weekly brunch and Caleb was at school. Then I emptied the joint account completely, every cent into my name. An hour later, I removed myself from every shared app, deactivated the family credit cards, and logged out of every smart home device. My phone buzzed once, then twice, then relentlessly. 37 missed calls, all from Sarah. Voicemails, then texts, pouring in. "What did you do? Daniel, call me now. You drained everything?" Then came the all-caps rants, strings of question marks, and finally a video call I let ring out as I sat in my rental's kitchen, sipping coffee from a chipped mug I'd brought from home. Alone, calm, and finally, quiet. But that wasn't the dramatic part. Not yet. Because Sarah hadn't seen what was coming. By voicemail number 12, she'd lost all composure. "You have no idea what you've done," she snapped, her voice trembling with rage. "You've destroyed everything, Daniel. I have bills due tomorrow. What am I supposed to do?" That one made me pause. Destroyed everything. Not, "Let's talk." Not, "Why did you go?" Not a hint of concern for me. The man she'd just publicly shamed with a cake, calling him average in front of his own son. Number. It was about her lifestyle collapsing, her comfort at risk. She wasn't worried about losing me. She was worried about losing the man who funded everything while being mocked in his own home. Later that night, Caleb texted, "Dad, Mom's losing it. What's happening?" I stared at the message. Caleb, who hadn't looked me in the eye on my birthday, who thought it was hilarious to record me as the cake joke landed like a punch, who never offered to help clean. It was probably the first text he'd sent me without asking for cash. I typed, deleted, thought, then wrote, "Ask her." I didn't say more. I wanted him to think, to ask real questions, not just echo Sarah's complaints. But I had a hunch how this would play out. The next day, a mutual friend, Tom from work, who knew both Sarah and me, called. I let it go to voicemail, but listened out of curiosity. "Hey, man. Not sure what's happening, but Sarah showed up at the office today. She was crying, saying you abandoned your family and wiped out the accounts. Just checking in. You okay?" I almost laughed. Abandoned? I didn't abandon them. I just stopped being their financial hostage. Hours later, I logged into the joint email we still technically shared. I hadn't removed myself yet, and I'm glad I didn't. Sarah had started emailing lawyers. One email, subject line, "Urgent, spouse financial misconduct," caught my eye. I opened it, read it. My hands tightened, not from fear, but from the lies spilling out like venom. "He has a pattern of emotional neglect, financial control, denies access to shared funds." She cast herself as the victim, claimed I was the manipulator, that I controlled the money. No mention of the 5-figure credit card debt she ran up in my name. No mention of the spa trips, endless brunches, the $1,000 purse she never thanked me for. No mention of me single-handedly covering the mortgage, groceries, utilities for 17 years, while she chased her passions and never contributed a dime. I stared at the screen. Anger tried to rise, but I pushed it down. That was her tactic. Manipulation, smear campaigns, playing the victim. I wouldn't engage. Instead, I printed every transaction record from the past 2 years, compiled a digital folder of every receipt, every charge, every bank statement, highlighted each unnecessary purchase tied to her or Caleb's name, labeled it Evidence Household Contributions. Then I added my W-2s, tax returns, proof of mortgage payments made solely from my income, and screenshots of her birthday cake post on social media captioned, "LOL, my husband knows he's just ordinary." Yes, it was public. I sent it all to my own attorney, hired quietly a week before the party. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to hide. But I was going to dismantle this methodically. No shouting, no drama, just deliberate, calculated truth. By the weekend, Sarah had sent over 80 texts, some apologetic, some pleading, most furious. One read, "How could you humiliate me like this? You left me with nothing." I replied to that one. "You left me with nothing years ago. I just finally caught up." Silence. Until the next day, I was sitting in the rental's small kitchen. Sunlight filtered through the blinds in that soft, golden late-afternoon glow. I was sipping tea when I heard a knock. Not the door. The window. I turned. Sarah, disheveled, eyes bloodshot, hair tangled like she hadn't slept. She gestured for me to open it. I stood slowly, kept my distance. She shouted through the glass, "You're going to ruin everything." I tilted my head, calmly replied, "You already did." She looked ready to throw something. "You want to destroy this family over a cake?" That line, that single, oblivious, self-centered line, made it all click. She still didn't get it. "It wasn't the cake," I said through the window. "It was what came before and what never came after. Respect, kindness, appreciation. You don't get to mock someone and expect loyalty. You wanted a bank account, not a partner. I just stopped auditioning for the role." I closed the curtains. She banged on the window once, then again, then stormed off, her heels clicking with every angry step. I didn't watch her leave. I returned to my tea. That night, Caleb called. His voice was soft, nervous. "Dad?" he asked. "Are you really gone?" "No," I said. "I'm just not invisible anymore." And then I told him everything, not in anger, not to turn him against her, just the truth, what I paid for, what she hid, what she twisted. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I think I knew, but I didn't want to admit it." "I know," I replied. "You don't have to choose between us, but you do have to see clearly." He didn't say much else. But that Sunday, he showed up at the rental with a bag and tears in his eyes. And that's when the real storm began. When Caleb stepped into the rental, he looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically. He's taller than me now, 17 and built like an athlete. But something in his stance. Shoulders hunched, eyes scanning the plain space like he wasn't sure he belonged, like a kid realizing the ground wasn't as solid as he thought. He stood there, gripping his duffel bag until I said softly, "You hungry?" He nodded. I didn't have much. Just sandwiches I'd made earlier and a pot of stew I'd been stretching all week. No fancy dinners, no takeout containers cluttering the counter. Just simple food made with steady hands. He ate 2 bowls without speaking. I sat across from him, drinking water, letting the silence linger. Not awkward, just honest. And maybe for the first time in years, that was enough. Eventually, he looked up and asked, "Are you really not coming back?" I leaned back, exhaled. "I'm not sure yet," I said honestly, "but I'm not going back to being treated like I don't matter." He stared at the table. "She said you drained her account to punish her." I shook my head. "I didn't touch her account. Only the joint one. The one she emptied." That seemed to hit him. He frowned, nodded, but stayed quiet. We watched a movie that night, some old comedy we loved when he was 10. It felt odd, familiar yet distant. Like wearing a jacket that's slightly too small, but it was ours. And when he laughed at lines he used to recite as a kid, I felt something ease in my chest for the first time in weeks. He stayed over, slept on the pull-out couch. In the morning, I drove him to school. But when I returned, the calm was gone. Taped to my front door, sloppily, was a printed letter. No envelope, just bold text at the top. "You are hereby notified." Sarah had filed for emergency spousal support, claiming abandonment, financial retaliation, and this one made me laugh out loud, intentional emotional distress. She was trying to strike first, paint me as the villain, hoping I'd fold like always. But I was ready. I took the letter inside, scanned it, and sent it to my lawyer with the subject line, "She's moving." He called within the hour. "She's going all in," he said, "trying to frame you as the one who vanished and left her and the kid penniless." I told him Caleb was with me. There was a pause. Then he said, "That changes everything." He helped me file a response. We attached the bank statements, the social media posts, even a potential affidavit from Caleb, though I didn't want to pull him deeper unless necessary. That night, I got a new email from Sarah. No greeting, no punctuation, just a frantic, angry wall of text. "You think you can take my son, my money, my life? You are sick. You need help. You are destroying your own family for what? Because you can't take a joke. You are pathetic. This won't end well for you." I didn't reply, but I saved it, screenshotted it, sent it to my lawyer. 2 days later, Sarah showed up at Caleb's school. I got a call from the office. "She's here demanding to take him," the receptionist whispered, sounding nervous. "He's asking to stay with you. He says she's shouting." I dropped everything and drove there. When I arrived, Caleb was in the main office, arms crossed, face pale but resolute. Sarah was pacing by the door, arguing with the principal, who looked like she regretted her entire career. When Sarah saw me, her face twisted. "You," she hissed. "This is your fault." I ignored her. Walked to Caleb. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded. "I want to go with you." The principal looked at me. "He's still a minor." "I know," I said, "but I have temporary guardianship paperwork pending." His statements included. Sarah stepped forward. "He's my son. You don't get to steal him because you're having a midlife crisis." That word again, steal. She said it like I was a stranger, like I hadn't raised him, paid for every meal, every lesson, every late-night drive, like I hadn't sat through homework and recitals while she spent weekends recharging at retreats. I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't know her anymore. "You didn't lose a son," I said quietly. "You lost your meal ticket." Her face flushed, but before she could lash out, the principal stepped in. "Mrs. Carter, please leave." Sarah spun and stormed out. That night, Caleb and I stayed up talking. For the first time in years, he opened up about how Sarah spoke of me when I wasn't there, how she mocked my job, my routines, told him I'd be nothing without her. "She used to say you were lucky to have her," he said softly, "but I think she was the lucky one." I didn't cry. I thought I might. But I just nodded and said, "Thanks, kid." A week passed, then 2. And then Sarah made her next move. Not through the courts, through my job. She went for blood. It started with a call from HR. Their tone was off. Not the usual corporate politeness, but something colder, hesitant. "Daniel, can you come in? We need to talk about a complaint." My stomach sank. I'd never had a write-up in over 15 years. I'd climbed from warehouse worker to operations manager. Trained new staff, stayed late, took weekend calls. I lived for that place. But when I walked into the glass conference room and saw the legal rep already there, I knew it wasn't about work. They handed me a packet. My name was everywhere, so was hers. Sarah had filed an anonymous report, but it was obvious. She accused me of misusing company funds, tampering with payroll, and, absurdly, intimidating co-workers. It was ridiculous, easily disproven, but the issue wasn't the lies. It was that she'd made enough noise to force an investigation. I endured 4 hours of questioning, 4 hours defending every action, every decision from the past 2 years. They reviewed my emails, timesheets, even the company fuel card I used for overtime. I didn't panic. I had nothing to hide, but I felt tarnished, like I was under a spotlight for daring to stand up for myself. They didn't fire me, but they placed me on a 2-week paid administrative leave while they reviewed. A polite corporate jab. No guilt, just guilt by association. I left that building with the weight of everything she'd broken pressing on me. She wasn't just trying to end our marriage. She was trying to erase me. That night I sat with Caleb in the rental. He saw my face and asked, "What now?" That's when I knew it was time to stop defending. It was time to end it. The next morning, I met my attorney and greenlit a full countersuit, divorce filing, custody motion, and a civil suit for defamation and malicious interference with employment. He raised an eyebrow at the last part. "You sure?" he asked. I nodded. "She's made this a war. I'm just showing up." Over the next 6 weeks, everything unraveled. For her. When Sarah was served the papers, she went wild. She called over 30 times in a day, leaving voicemails that swung between threats and tears. I didn't answer, not out of spite, but because her words belonged with my lawyer. She tried playing the devoted mother in court, claiming Caleb was manipulated by me, just confused. But the judge wasn't swayed, especially when Caleb testified calmly about her behavior. The cake, the years of mockery, how she'd laugh behind my back and call me the help. The judge's expression stayed neutral, but I saw the shift in his eyes. Quiet disdain. Then came the financial records. Every cent I paid, every luxury she charged, endless wellness costs, weekly massages, private yoga, imported cosmetics, custom pet outfits for a dog she never walked, over $80,000 in 4 years, all while I covered the mortgage, groceries, utilities, and school fees. Her lawyer tried to spin it. "It was for maintaining the household," he argued. My lawyer smirked. "She hasn't worked since February 2016. No documented contributions, financial or otherwise." The final strike was a deposition. Sarah didn't know I'd recorded a conversation a week before her workplace complaint. I was venting to a friend on a call when she barged in, ranting about how she'd make me regret being born and I'd lose everything if I didn't come back. She said, "I'll take your job, your money, your pathetic moral high ground, and leave you with nothing but that sad little apartment." When the court heard it, her own voice spilling every arrogant word, the case shifted. The judge ruled in my favor on all counts. The divorce was finalized within a month. I got full custody of Caleb, with Sarah granted supervised visitation pending counseling. As for my job, the investigation cleared me completely. HR sent a formal apology letter, though they lacked the guts to say it in person. I declined their offer to return. I didn't want to step back into a place that let her lies linger unchecked. Instead, I started fresh. I took a severance, used the savings I'd quietly built, the separate account, the investments she never knew about, and bought into a small business I'd dreamed of for years. A local logistics consulting firm needing a manager with experience and vision. For the first time in decades, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck or watching others live off mine. Caleb graduated high school with honors. He got into a great university, and I helped him move in, smiling the whole time. Sarah, meanwhile, tried to save face online, posting about finding herself and living her truth. But the truth was already in court records heard by 3 judges. The mask was off. Most mutual friends quietly distanced themselves. Those who reached out to me said things like, "I always wondered how you dealt with her." And my favorite, "You were never average. You were just surrounded by people who didn't recognize greatness." It's been a year. I left the rental behind, bought a modest house by the lake. It's calm, serene. There's a hammock out back that catches just enough sun. Caleb visits often. We grill on weekends, laugh, talk about real things. I feel the weight of those old years slipping away day by day. And sometimes when I look back, I think of the cake, not with pain or bitterness, but with gratitude. That cruel, icing-covered insult was the moment I woke up. The moment I realized I'd become a background character in my own story. Now I'm the one writing the script, and I make sure every chapter is worth reading.